Today, we're going to dive into one of the most famous thought experiments in the history of AI, the Chinese room. But we're going to introduce a twist, a really human variable that might just change how you think about the entire debate.
So here's the big question, right? An AI can chat so perfectly, you'd swear it's a person. It passes every single test you can throw at it. But does that flawless performance actually mean it gets it? Does it genuinely comprehend anything? That's the puzzle at the heart of what we're talking about today.
So first things first, let's break down the classic thought experiment. It's time to step inside the Chinese room. At its core, this argument is a major challenge to what's called strong AI. You know, the idea that a really complex program could have a mind just like a human. It forces us to ask, what's the difference between just simulating a mind and actually having one?
Okay, so picture this. You've got a person who only speaks English, locked in a room. Think of him as the CPU. Messages in Chinese get passed in. That's the input. And he has this massive rulebook, like a program, that tells him exactly which Chinese symbols to send back out in response. He's not translating, he's just meticulously matching symbols. And from the outside, it's incredible. The room seems to be having a perfect, coherent conversation in Chinese.
And this right here is the killer point of the whole argument. Even though the output is flawless, the guy inside has zero clue what he's talking about. He could be answering deep philosophical questions or just ordering a pizza, he'd never know. So the big question is, if the man doesn't understand, and the rule book and the papers certainly don't understand, where is the understanding? The argument says, well, it's just not there.
Okay, but here's where we're going to throw a wrench in the works. The original argument treats the human like a simple machine. But what if we start adding back all the messy, unpredictable stuff that actually makes us human? Let's run a new kind of test.
In that question, well, it kind of breaks the whole analogy, doesn't it? A CPU doesn't get bored or anxious or distracted. A human does. And those uniquely human experiences, they aren't just background noise. They can totally change how information gets processed.
I mean, this is where the comparison just falls apart. What if the paper has a tiny hint of perfume on it and that triggers a powerful memory? What if the room is way too hot and the person is getting agitated? Or what if they're feeling super anxious from being cooped up? All of a sudden you have all these sensory and emotional inputs that a machine, by its very design, just ignores.
And that's the whole point. These sensory inputs could subtly change the responses. Maybe the person works a little slower, or an emotion nudges them to pick one rulebook option over another equally valid one. The purely logical process is now being shaped by human experience, and suddenly the original analogy doesn't really hold up anymore.
All right, so let's really turn up the heat. What happens when these sensory details aren't just little nudges, but are actually critical pieces of information in a life or death decision?
Just imagine a situation where the right call depends on something subtle in the environment. The smell of gas, a slight vibration, the panicked look on someone's face. These are things a computer working just from text or data would completely, 100% miss.
So who are you going to bet on? The AI alone makes a decision based on a flawless crunch of the data it has. But the human, using that same AI as an incredibly powerful tool, adds this whole other layer. Their senses, their gut feeling, their lived experience. They literally get the best of both worlds, blending that machine speed analysis with uniquely human insight.
And, all of this leads to an even bigger, more fundamental question. Maybe the entire idea of comparing human and artificial intelligence, like they're 2 points on the same line, is just flawed from the very beginning.
A truly fair apples-to-apples comparison would mean we'd have to somehow write down the code for the entire human experience. Imagine trying to create a rulebook for every feeling, every bias, every gut instinct. You'd basically have to erase everything that makes us, well, us.
And that's a mission impossible from the get-go. I mean, think about it. We don't even fully understand our own consciousness. It's this black box filled with biases, constantly being reshaped by our environment, and it thrives on the unpredictable. So how could we possibly build a perfect model of something we can't even fully explain to ourselves?
And that's the real kicker, isn't it? The benchmark itself is a mystery. We're holding AI up to a standard, our own mind, that we can't even properly define. It's like trying to measure something with a ruler that keeps changing its own length. It just doesn't work.
So, okay, where do we go from here? Maybe it's time to reframe the whole conversation. Maybe it's not about competition. Maybe it's about collaboration.
This quote really just sums it up perfectly. AI is an absolutely incredible tool. It's going to help humanity in so many ways we can't even imagine yet. The goal shouldn't be to create a rival, but a partner.
to use its incredible strengths in logic and data to complement our strengths in creativity, intuition, and, well, understanding.
Ultimately, the Chinese room argument might not really be about whether a machine can think. It's about what defines our own thinking. It reminds us that AI is a reflection of the logic we can program. But humanity, we're that plus all the mystery and magic we can't. So the real question isn't what AI will become. It's what we, as its creators and its partners, will choose to build with it.